Hello, everyone. My name is Mirna, and on behalf of the Mindalia TV team, we want to welcome you to Mindalia live streaming, where thousands of people around the world gather to see the lectures and interviews organized by Mindalia TV. Today with us, Angel Ribot, CEO consultant, TV host, international public speaker, and president of the Wisdom Kids Foundation, is going to be interviewing for us Clara Bellino. Clara is a musicpreneur. She empowers creative folks to pursue and find their passion. For Clara, everyone is creative, and the world needs to be still a place where there is new creations and creativity and art. Before starting, we want to remind you that if you want to help other people just like you to have access to the information we shared in Mindalia TV, there's a couple of things that you can do just by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, or leaving us a positive comment down below. You help, as I said before, people just like you to have access to the information we share here in our channel. Also, while we are live streaming, we have the active chat on the side of the screen. That is an excellent tool for you to interact. You can enter your questions. Just please feel free to follow the format, the word question, and then the actual question that you want answered. At the end of the interview, Clara will be answering to your question. Without further ado, I'm going to be leaving you with Angel and Clara.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mirna, for introducing us. Clara, what a blessing to have you among us today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much. What a blessing to be here. It's so fun that we're in all these different parts of the world and we get to talk here. Thank you.
Exactly. Absolutely. What a beautiful place you are in. May I ask you, maybe a little bit nosy, and ask you where you are?
Yes, you may. I am actually visiting my folks right now in the Alps in France. And I am in the part of their house that we refer to as the barn, La Grange, which is my parents live in this old farm that they bought and fixed up. And so the barn is where actually hay used to be kept. And my parents fixed it up, and it's a big room with like 15 beds and a place to welcome friends. So that's where I'm sitting this morning.
Beautiful. That's a great place then for creativity. What's the relationship, according to your experience, between creativity and nature?
Oh, wow. It's huge. I when you say that, I think of growing up. I grew up mostly in the countryside, and always with windows that open on fields and forests. And actually, this house, which is where I spent a lot of time growing up, is at the top of this tiny village where 30 people live, and there's a big yard facing me here where you can actually see the Mont Blanc, the Matterhorn, and so I think the relationship between nature and creativity is big. Nature is a great place to go to get in touch with creativity and just kind of rest the soul and get inspired. That's how I think of it.
Okay. What is your main source of creativity, Clara?
It's a combination of things. It's I get a lot of my inspiration in dreams. And that's often the starting point of lyrics that I write, but also observing people in their lives and finding universal themes in the things that we all deal with, and just being curious about people is a great inspiration for creativity. How people deal with their lives.
When you said dreams, how do those dreams come to you?
I have pretty vivid dreams. I mean, there's the dreams that I have when I actually dream when I'm asleep, and those are pretty vivid and colorful, and they happen to me in different languages. They're mostly visual and colorful, and so images, and also sometimes I hear symphonies. So sometimes when I wake up, I've heard a whole song that it's like I hope to capture. But also dreams in terms of, what the dreams that are what I want my life and hopefully other people's dreams, what they want their lives to be. Dreams are a big subject.
Yeah, exactly. And do you think that, is it a common path for creators to rely on their dreams? Do they typically have, because you're obviously surrounded by a lot of creative people, right? Do you think that's something in common that you all have?
I don't know that every creator finds inspiration in their dreams, as in the dreams that they dream when they sleep. But I do think that personally, I think it's really important to have big dreams to create your life. And so I think that people who end up creating their own lives and being creative in whatever it is they do dream. I mean, they dream about, their dreams are important to them. And that's one of the things I like to help reawaken in the people I'm surrounded with, or my friends, is, you know, encourage them to not suffocate their dreams. You know, dreams are so important. They're what we contribute to the world, because everything starts with a thought or a dream. If there's no dream, there's not much.
And you said you observe. You said that you observe people in order to also be inspired to create what you create.
Yeah, I love to people watch. You know, wherever I am traveling, it. I mean, it can be anywhere. You know, it can be, if I'm in Paris, it's in the metro, or anywhere, just sitting at a cafe or at a restaurant. I mean, just watching people and their interactions is so informative about how people go through life, you know, or their energies, how they're, you know, when people are around you, there's so many different energies. There's people who are more givers, there's people who are more takers, there's people who have really good energy, and you could tell they just kind of exude it, and there's people who are so much more closed or unhappy. And so it's you know, you could pick up on so much just by looking at people and talking with them, of course, and being curious about them.
And how do you incorporate that to your work?
Well, I guess it informs some of the songs that I don't do that many covers, but some of the songs that if I do a cover, some of the songs that I choose as a cover has a theme that matters to me. I could, for example, take, you know, on my new album, one of the songs I picked was called Un Enfant, which is a child. And I really wanted to do that song because it talks about the innocence of kids and how they just go for it. And so, you know, my observing children informed kind of the decision of wanting to cover that song. In terms of my my own songs, I'm just thinking, I just, you know, I choose themes, I guess, in my songs that I write that are important. And so I choose themes that are linked, that are the things that I think matter in human relationships. And so, you know, for example, in my last album, there's this theme of love and distance, and gratitude is a big theme in my songs. And so those are things that I think are important. And so in observing people and how much they embrace that or acceptance, I write stories that are that include that.
Okay. And do you think that what do you think is the effect of those songs, of those themes, when people listen to your songs?
Well, there's what I hope and what I think and what I've heard. I hope that the effect is that people are inspired and moved and lifted by what they hear. I have my goal always, when I perform or when I write, is to I mean, I always say, you know, if people come and see my show, I want them to feel better when they leave, not worse, you know. So, and because, I mean, people come willingly, and you know, I feel it's my responsibility to give them something. And so, but I've often, thankfully, been told that when people hear my music or come, that they feel, you know, drawn in and and I don't want to say necessarily better, but yeah, happier. You know.
Happier. What do you think is the power of music?
Oh, I think it's huge. I think the power of music is to connect people, is to also, um, I think a good song and a good performer and music um, gives people a chance to, if they're not able to say it themselves, to feel like they're part of expressing that feeling. I think I think music, I think music can change the world. I think that music is very powerful. It's very cathartic, and it's a great way to unify people. I think you know there's this consciousness, human consciousness, global consciousness, and when people can come together and feel united by music, it can be very powerful.
Do you have some specific experience in which you found or you realized or you felt that the power of music uniting people?
Yes, I'm going to say mostly concerts I attended, and one that comes to mind, which was quite some time ago. I saw Bob Marley in France years ago. That was very powerful. I happen to also be a big David Bowie fan, and I got to see him in a big concert, which is probably the last really big concert I attended, because big crowds kind of are not really my thing, but in smaller venues too. I mean, just when you get together, you go to a show that you enjoy, and people are in a room where they're basically immersed, and for that time, they're very in the moment. They're there enjoying music, and so it can be transformative, even if what it does is it just takes you away for that hour, to some common place.
Why do you do what you do, Clara?
I don't really feel like I have a choice. No, that sounds wrong, because I know I do have a choice. I I think that there's a lot of reasons why I do what I do. I think, first of all, I grew up when I was very little in a house where there was always music. We With my family, we traveled quite a bit. As a kid, we all lived in the United States for a couple years, and I remember our house always having music going on. And so I think that had a great influence on me. Um, and so I also remember when I was 7 years old, my parents asking me, what do you want to do with your time? And I said, I want to play music. It was just, I recall actually when I was 3 years old, sitting in our house, in the room where there were the speakers with our stereo system. And I had this whole dream. I mean, literally, there was this show I loved as a kid, and I saw all the characters of them coming out of the speakers. I mean, this sounds crazy, but in that moment when I was listening to that music, and I had this whole visual thing, and I realized that, I realized how powerful music was, and that was fascinating to me. It took me somewhere else. I mean, literally, where I saw visually the somewhere else. It wasn't happening right in front of me, but I was seeing it. And so I think where I grew up is a great part of why I do what I do, because it was something that I was lucky to be surrounded by. And then beyond that, one of the things I'm really happy doing is when I get to sing and be surrounded by musicians and see that it has an impact on people. And so it's my happy place. I remember deciding, I think when I was 17, because it was I didn't know if I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And I remember deciding that it involved, a lot of decisions. I moved out of my country to pursue this thing that I love doing. And I remember deciding this is the best I have to offer the world. And so that's why I do what I do, because out of everything I can do, and I do a number of things, I came to this conclusion that that was part of my role, was to give something that made people happy, and that was the best way I could do it.
And how did you
And how
start
did you
in
start
the
in the
music world?
music world?
Well, I started at 7 years old. I started attending the conservatory when my parents said, "What do you want to do with your time?" So I did. I spent 10 years in the conservatory in France. I started. It was a very, very strict in those days, but I loved being in classes at the conservatory. And so you had to start doing, with 2 years of solfeggio and theory and training before you were even allowed to play an instrument. And then you were allowed to play the recorder. And then I played the piano and I played some classical guitar. And I completed a 10-year conservatory course in France. And then I moved to the States. And so I started, I decided that, in France at the time, it felt like the avenues to explore your own creativity and to seem kind of closed. It's changed a lot now, but you could either play this kind of music or that kind of music. But I realized that in California, there was more, at that time, there was more avenues. And so I moved to California and I started my first band. And I went to this college where I met, I took some more classes with jazz improv. And anyway, I met a bunch of musicians, and I was surrounded by a lot of people who had access to instruments. And to me, that was wild. I mean, people actually, they played music because they could. It wasn't necessarily that was going to be their life, which is fine. And so I started playing with people, and I started my first band, and I could book myself in places. I could call up places and say, can I have a show? And I did. And I wasn't really good when I started, but I got to experience that and get better. And so that's how I started. I just started by playing with people, and played with so many different people over the years, and kept moving forward. And I remember, starting when I was starting, thinking that the first group of people I was with were going to be the people that we were going to become rock stars all together. And then it dawned on me that that wasn't going to happen. I was, the very first band wasn't necessarily going to be the band that I would, encounter success with. And that took some acceptance and going, okay, that's okay. I'm still going to keep doing what I love. And I've played with so many people since then. It's good to let go of, this notion that the first people you play with are going to be the thing. But,
well, what a fascinating story. How similar would you think? Because there's a lot of people that like music, that they start their career in music, but not everybody is able to pursue their fascination for music or their talent for music.
Yeah.
What would you say? What about those people that you found while you were growing in your music career?
Well, in some, in some cases, I mean, there's a whole spectrum of. There are people for who I think it was kind of a hobby, and something else, became more important to them. And then there are friends that I have that are very talented, and it saddens me when they give up, because it is difficult, it's difficult to make a living as an artist, period. I mean, I don't think music is the privileged category of difficulty, but I do think it takes, when I use the term musicpreneur, I think that certainly in these days, you have to be an entrepreneur to be a musician. I think it's always been true. I mean, as an independent musician, I used to have a voice teacher who used to say, it's called the music business, and business is a longer word. And so I feel grateful that I think, compared to a number of musicians I know, I have more of a disposition towards business. I actually, it's it doesn't give me hives to think of business. It just, I'm okay with it. So I have more of a business mind, but it saddens me when I see friends, as the music business changes, which it always does, friends who continue to think that the old model exists, where somebody's going to come discover you and rescue you. And it's really it's too bad, because like anything else, you can't do this alone. And so whatever you have to do to find people to work with is what you have to do. And I know that, you know, if I didn't love it so much, I would have quit a long time ago, because it's not always easy. That's clear. But I love it. And so there are times when, you know, the patience it takes for anything to happen, because like anything else, you have to have the means to do it. And how do you find the means? I mean, that's, you know, I work, for example, with, I have worked for 10 years with my assistant. Her name is Sarah, and she's wonderful. And I want to say I was very lucky to connect with her, but I also connected with her because I reached out to hire some people to help me, and she happened to be there. And so I could not do what I do without her and without other people as well. Um, and when I, you know, sometimes I try to encourage my friends, and I say, you know, you can't do it all. Find somebody. And their response is often, I can't afford anyone. And I say, well, when I started working with Sarah, I didn't know how I was going to come up with that extra, you know, whatever it was I started when we started together. And then within a very short amount of time, it's like, I can't afford not to afford her. I have to, that is. And so, it's, you know, I know that you can't do anything alone, and when I see people who try, it just saddens me, because there are ways, you know. I think when you love what you do, and it has to be part of your life, then you reach out, and you find people that you create, you know, a win-win situation with.
Let's try to give all these people that are in the music world that unfortunately have not found that musicpreneur path yet. What could we advise them to do? What do you think? What were those moments in which you said, no, instead of doing this, I'm going to do that? What would be those paths that you took that made you be a musicpreneur?
Well, okay. So one was to find somebody to work with, and I found Sarah through a company that was called Cyber PR, and at first, you know, people would ask me, well, what do you delegate to her? And I said, well, I didn't know at first what to delegate to her, but I realized I couldn't do everything. So the first thing I think is to just try. It's like, I started by saying, anything that came my way that I didn't have time to deal with when I was focusing on what I needed to focus on, I would delegate. And so we started with Sarah creating this system where you know, we had a consistency about how often we communicated together. And so it started with, we had one call a week, and then it turned into what we're doing now. Actually, we had a Hangouts and Zoom calls. So we had one call a week. And initially we would, you know, just go down this list of things that had come up that needed to be dealt with. And then we realized that it was a little tough to make sure that things didn't fall through the cracks on this list, right? Because the list was long, and then we go, oh, what about this? What about that? So Sarah and I then developed a system of communication where we had documents that, you know, listed the things, and we then became more able to know with each other what had been done without having to reach out to each other. We could just look at these documents and say, okay, this has been done, so I can do this. And so we started developing that. And then, you know, we came to the point where we realized that we couldn't do what we were trying to do, just the two of us. And Sarah suggested that we look for interns. And we and initially that was a little scary to me, only because I wanted that situation to be a win-win situation, and it's actually I believe close to or illegal to actually have unpaid interns. And at that time, I wasn't in a position to pay interns, so we decided that we would only work with interns who got credit in school. So people who were looking to learn from what we had been doing. And you know, when we started that, I got I got something from the state labor board saying I had to sign this thing, and I had to make sure that I didn't get more out of them than they got out of me. And that kind of freaked me out. And Sarah said, listen, when you met me, I was in a place where I started as an intern and then became a director of marketing. And she said, if I hadn't been an intern, I wouldn't have been able to afford the classes that would have taught me what I learned. And so one of the things I learned when we started working with interns was that, first of all, I realized how much I had to share, because you do what you do and you become accustomed to thinking, or you might start thinking, no, this is obvious. But I realized that actually I had a lot to share for people who were wanting to learn about the music business. And so that's what we did. We started working with interns about 5 years ago. And we made sure to actually tailor our internship to the strengths of the intern. We found out about them and what they wanted to do, but also to what they wanted to learn. And so there's a number of areas we work in, but we made sure to give them what they wanted to learn. And it has been such a rewarding experience because, while at first it kind of scared me a little bit, it has been so rewarding in terms of relationships. And we've been very blessed with wonderful interns. And we've had situations where interns would not leave. Like they had, a certain amount of time they had to commit to us, depending on the school they came from. And then they would say, no, I'm not leaving. I want to stay with my team. And so they would stick around for another 6 months, which was very, validating. But so those are some of the things we've done. And we find these interns in different places, but mostly there is a site that has been very helpful to us that's called entertainmentcareers.com. And what we found is that the interns who come from there they're not interning because somebody told them they needed to find an internship. They're interning because they're really passionate about, they're looking for an internship because they're passionate about what they want to learn. And so we've had some interns, I think they're just the cream of the crop. They want to learn, and those are some of the things we've done. And it's a ongoing learning experience, right? We learn from each situation. But that's been very helpful to be able to delegate and grow. And we learn from them because we really create a team where we encourage them to be part of the creative process of coming up, with solutions for the things we're working on.
So having a team allows you to be focused. Focused on what? What's your number one priority as an artist today, Clara?
It varies depending on what stage of creativity I'm in. So, for example, it has been for the last 6 months. It has been actually for the last 2.5 years, I should say. It has been about completing my album. I've been working on this album literally for over 2 years. And so the focus during that time has been about, meeting the people, fine-tuning the songs, getting myself physically ready in terms of vocals, and the pre-production of the songs. So choosing who I'm going to do the album with, finding the musicians through those producers, where is it going to happen, where are the funds going to come from, all of that. When I'm in the album writing mode, that needs to be the focus from what are the songs going to be to the album being done. And that involves a lot of preparation. Because I always say, I only make that album once. And so I want to make it the best possible. So having a team allows me to, to practice my vocals daily, to practice my instrument, to travel to the places where I am either recording or mixing, or meeting the people that I'm working with, and there's a lot of communication that happens around that, and that's a lot of what the team does. And the team also is responsible for my I mean, I have my voice, but they're responsible for a lot of my social media presence, which we discuss and we agree on what's going to go out, but I can't do that all by myself.
During those 2 years, what were the most difficult moments for being focused on developing or creating your songs and your album?
One of the most difficult times of those 2 years was running a crowdfunding campaign. I'd heard about crowdfunding campaigns. Crowdfunding campaigns are used, as we know, I think, by a lot of people in a lot of fields. Sorry, there's a fly here that is driving me crazy. And so we decided to do a crowdfunding campaign. I studied crowdfunding campaigns with my producers. I met actually with the CEOs of crowdfunding campaign companies. I was at Midem in Cannes in France. I interviewed some people. I looked at all the different videos that people had created to as their video for their crowdfunding campaign. I decided that we were not going to do a crowdfunding campaign until I had a certain size list and a certain size team, because my observation was that the ones that were successful were not the ones where people just once in a while put a post on Facebook. It takes a lot more work than that. And so we put together, actually, by the time the crowdfunding campaign was launched, we had a team of 6 people. There was me, Sarah, and 4 interns. And we scheduled ourselves for 37 days. We decided, for some reason, that was the length of the campaign. And every single day, each one of us knew what we were going to do. And then we actually did more than what we were scheduled for 37 days. It was one of the most stressful times of my music career. It was, it had 2 sides. It was very stressful. I didn't sleep much for the first 2 weeks of it. And it was also kind of addictive, because it was wonderful to wake up and get a message that said somebody you never heard of contributed whatever they contributed, We were successful, meaning that we reached our goal at the very last minute. We met some people that we otherwise would not have met. It really surprised me. The people I thought might contribute, some of them didn't, and that's fine. But and some of the people I didn't meet anywhere suddenly showed up out of the woodworks. And so it was very educational. It was super stressful. And I got to tell you, if I never have to do one of those again, that'll be just fine with me. I don't want to do another crowdfunding campaign. I mean, bless anyone who wants to do one. Go for it. I'm sure you'll learn something from it. And I respect that it's, sometimes what people have to do. I don't like the model of crowdfunding, at least in terms of, putting out my own art. I don't care how anybody slices it. It feels like a begging model. And it also, I guess there's different ways to organize that, but, people help you, you put out everything you can, and you do believe in, what it is that you're going to do. But so that our crowdfunding campaign funded the first half of my album.
Okay.
And then the second half, I decided I'm not doing that again. And so I've been actually just kind of paying it as I go along. But here's the other thing is, like, now that the album is done, I'm not done with my crowdfunding campaign. I have to deliver on the goods of the people who supported it. So it's a lot of work. And I, I don't like the fact that at least in music, I'll just isolate music here, that there's a lot of people who think music should be free, and it's not. There's no way it can be, even though, that's how it's treated by a lot of people. And I think we need to educate people about that, because if you want good music, it costs money to do it, to have people taken care of while they're doing it with you. And so it's not free. And this notion that, that people can make music on a computer. Well, yeah, a lot of people make crappy music on computer, but it takes energy, and it can't happen without, people being taken care of. So
How much, may I ask you, how much could you raise with that crowdfunding campaign?
The first part of the album, it was $15,000.
Wow.
Which is, is great. I mean, I'm grateful for it. In terms of making a full album, it's not that much. It wasn't enough, actually.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about musicians and studio time and producers and voice classes and it's yeah. So 15,000. It was. I'll never forget it. I'm just so glad it's done. I mean, the racing part is done. It's like, I remember the last day, I think in the last 3 hours, we got our last $3,000. And I was like, but,
so you definitely learned a lot. And that was the most defining moment. From a creative perspective, how can you consistently be focused or inspired to be writing, to be composing? How can you do that? Do you use a technique? Do you play some sort of magic? How do you do it?
Yeah, there's no magic, like just saying, just making sure that on a daily basis I create, basically, that. And so I have a daily, most days practice, which starts with, being grateful before my feet even hit the ground. Most days I count 100 things I'm grateful for before I even put my foot to the ground. I also, I read a lot before I read before I start my day on most days. I also, I basically, to be creative, I try to not live my life from a reactive point. Like, I don't just get up, and ideally I don't get up and just get on my computer. I actually have an idea of how I want my day to go. And I prioritize doing that in the first part of the day. And that involves being grateful, reading, spending some time in my garden, and then deciding what are the things that matter that day. And most days it involves practicing my voice and working on some writing, and that sometimes is inspired by reading. And so it really, I think time management, no matter what, we are all can be also busy, and unless I have some practice to manage my time, I will not find the time to be creative.
Can you get like block of your creativity?
Can I get not really, in the sense that like I said, at different times of creativity, there's different things that need attention. So, I'm not always booking shows and performing and writing songs every day. I mean, I kind of feed the creativity that needs to happen for what I'm focusing on at the time. But in terms of, if you're talking about like writer's block, what am I going to talk about today? I really find that if you just show up consistently, something will happen. And if the block happens, I think in writing as in anything else, if you have this kind of overwhelming notion that something magical has to happen at every moment that I create, and if, as long as I give it, a consistent little time, something does happen, which I don't necessarily know what's going to happen or how it's going to happen. But the fact that I show up and that I scribble something and that I kind of dig in there a little bit, then it happens. I like to think of, there's this company I partner with, and this man, Jeff Olson, wrote the book, The Slight Edge. And that's what that reminds me of, because creativity, I think, in any field, happens when you are consistent and you give it some effort on a regular basis. And so, to answer your question, if I get blocked, it's because I'm not showing up. it's
Excellent. I love that. I love that advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the importance of positive movement?
Oh, I think it's huge. Meaning that negativity is all around us. You don't have to, you don't have to work to find negativity. Uh, it's and so you actually do have to look for positivity to find it. And there are uh, there are a lot of people in the world doing good things. You wouldn't necessarily know it by listening to the news. Um, I think it's really important to remember that a majority of people, want peace and want good things and want a good life. And so I think the positive movement is important because we have a choice every day on what we focus on. And uh, it's easy to be carried away with just talking about what's going wrong. And positive thinking is not about ignoring the negative. I think it's about finding a way to stay positive while knowing that there's negative things. I think it's super important for the quality of life. I mean, uh, I think we've all been around people, not that I'm immune to once in a while being negative about something, but we've all been around people who kind of suck the air out of the room because they're just always looking at, what's not working. And I think it's important because, life is sad if that's how you go through it. So
What are you part of that movement?
I think I am. I mean,
how do you do it in your songs? How do you show in your songs that way?
Well, that's a great question too. Personally, I'm not a fan of people who sing songs that are, oh, woe is me. Like just that I don't like, going and seeing an artist who's like singing there with their eyes closed and, you did this to me. I mean, I understand the blues has its place. That's not even what I'm talking about. But I think in my songs, mostly, even if I expose something that has been, trying and difficult, I always, and I don't do this because I've decided to do this. I share it from when I've gone through the tunnel. I share it from like I have a song called "Leave It to Me," and it was about this relationship I was in. I made that choice to be in that relationship. Okay, I learned some things. It wasn't that great, but I learned some things. But I call it "Leave It to Me" because I really made that choice. And so I like to present things from not from a victim standpoint, but from actually like, phew, I'm glad I got through it, and I make better choices now. But wow, was I silly then? It's just like it's not. I don't think I have songs that are from a blaming standpoint, and I think that's how it comes through.
Do you think there are many musicians that are part of your movement, of this positive, part of positive movement?
Yes, I think there are many musicians who want to bring joy to the world. I think there are many musicians who whose mission is, or joy is, to add positivity and some sunshine in people's lives. And it doesn't mean they don't talk about difficult subjects, right? It's just that they actually give a voice to that, or a voice and a possible solution or way to look at things that that is brighter.
Excellent. All right, so we've reached the first part of our interview, Clara, and I would like definitely to please let our audience at Mindalia TV know where they can find you.
Yes, thank you. Well, you can find me. I have a website that is clarabellino.com. So that's CLARABELLINO.com. And on that website, there are buttons to each of my social media platforms. You can also just put my name on Google, which I'm pretty easy to find on the internet. But my website is my preferred place to send people to. and that's where a lot of our activity and exchange with our tribe, as we like to call them, my fans, people who we enjoy exchanging with. That's where we like to have the exchange, and we're going to be very soon. We're actually going to be releasing my new album, Unexpected. It is called, on my website, and that'll be the best place to go to find out about it.
Perfect. Exactly. That was going to be my second question. So excellent. So let's go forward to the questions, Clara. First one, what do you recommend to people who feel too old to start making music?
My best thing is that, if people like your music, they don't care how old you are. It's not about, I know that there's a great pressure. There used to be more so in the music business about, if you're past 25, oh my God, there's no hope for you. It is so untrue. And I think part of why that was more of the truth is because obviously if a record company is investing in you, they want to see that they have time to work with you and possibly recoup their money. But I think it's really not a concern. I understand that it's a concern from the inside of somebody, but just think you have something to share at any age, and the people who like what you have to share, they don't care how old you are. You can be 85. Doesn't matter.
Excellent. Thank you. What type of music do you do?
I call what I do pop, jazz, Euro. It's mostly pop. It has a great amount of jazz influence in it, even though I don't consider myself a jazz musician. I grew up around a lot of jazz. My dad is a jazz fanatic. And then Euro, because I grew up in Europe, and there's an element of that can't be taken out of my music.
Excellent. Next question. Do you think this is your life purpose?
Yes, in the sense that through my music, I can fulfill my purpose or purposes, because I think that it's not just about satisfying me personally, because I love doing it, but it can be applied to a lot of causes.
Excellent. Next question is, where can we find your music? I think we already said that, right?
On my website, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Is it easier to compose when sad or when happy?
Neither. I don't feel like I have to suffer to compose. I know that, at times I'm going to be sad and at times I'm going to be happier, but that's just part of life. But I can't say that one is easier than the other. I just if I just sit down and start composing, then I compose. And if I'm sadder, maybe it's going to have slightly different tonalities. But I love it. I love it however I feel.
Okay. Next one. Do you use your intuition to compose?
Yes, very much. You make me think of, there's this one song in my new album, which I wrote for a dear friend of mine. He was the man who wrote Unchain My Heart, Bobby Sharp. And he passed away 3 years ago. And he gave me a song that we recorded together, and I wanted to write a song for him. And I spent actually in the same home I am right now. A couple years ago, I was in my bedroom at my piano, and I wanted to channel Bobby. I wanted to, and it took me almost a week to come up with, spending some time, come up with the theme of it. And when I say intuition, I heard the song, just about everybody that I played parts of the song or the song for, down to when I recorded it in Los Angeles with the musician, everybody said to me, that is a really trippy song. How does that work? And I heard it, and part of that was intuition. I heard it working together, but until it was done, everybody was not getting it. And I was like, I know this is going to work. And it's intuition, and it's my inner ear, right? But there was not one person who got it. And now that it's done, people are like, wow, it actually works really well together. I'm like, I know. but if I hadn't just gone on, and just said, that's okay, whatever you think, I know it's going to work. So that's partly intuition, and it's partly, just trusting my own musical instinct, intuition. Yeah.
What's the name of that song? by the way?
It's called Talking with Angels, song for Bobby Sharp.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Angels.
Excellent. Is it, excuse me, why is the entertainment industry so full of drama and drugs?
I don't know. I think creative people, not just, well, the entertainment industry is more than musicians, right? I think creative people are more emotional than some people and more sensitive than again, I believe everybody is creative, but I think the people who pursue this aspect of themselves, which makes them, if they're doing it well, it kind of makes them vulnerable, it exposes them. And I'm not trying to make an excuse for the fact that there's drama and drugs. um, I guess there's a combination of the fact that creative people and entertainment are sensitive, vulnerable people, as they should be, which is a good thing. I think it's also that you have to decide why it is you're doing what you're doing. And I think that from my observation, there are a number of people who do this for this kind of elusive fame or whatever it is, and I think that's fine in many ways. But if you're doing it just for the outside, approval, I think that can be really a trap. And I think that's, if that's so important to them, I think that can lead to self-destruction, drugs.
Okay, good. Thank you. Next question. Do you do any other type of art besides music?
Well, I cook. I like to think that cooking is an art. I love cooking. I also I have a garden, and I think of it as art. I grow most of our food, and I rescue plants from this nursery that throws away flowers. And so my garden is part of my artistic expression. It's full of color and healthy foods. Other than that, I occasionally draw, not a whole lot. What else do I do for art? I mean, music is the main thing. I'm also an actress. I've been a union actress, so I've done voice work. I've worked on many films in different capacities. That's art too. But there's many aspects to my creativity. I guess music is the most focused one.
All right, thank you. How about physical appearance? Entertainment industry is so closed when it comes down or when it comes for beauty standards. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's something I've been aware of. I feel blessed that I have looks that I'm happy with most of the time. I think beyond the appearance, I think that it's very important actually to be, as a singer, it's important to be healthy. To me, the health of my voice is dependent on the health of my body. And I think that the more important, yes, the industry places, a lot of emphasis on looks. But I think that if you are taking care of yourself, no matter what you look like, people are also looking for people who are unique. I mean, who are themselves. And so I think it's really important to keep finding out what it is that makes you you, because I love that expression, be yourself, everyone else is taken. And it breaks my heart sometimes when I see artists who you can tell are really trying to embrace what they think they ought to look like or behave like or dress like. And I mean, I like creativity and dressing and performing, but when I see somebody trying to be somebody they're not, it's much less attractive than seeing somebody with all their, embracing their flaws and what makes their charm, So I think it's a shame that there is so much pressure on physical appearance in terms of trying to make it a standard thing, because there is no such thing. And the better that anyone is going to do is going to be linked to how much they are being themselves. being healthy is important. Being you know, a size 0 is not.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Next question. I feel like artists are more sensitive, like more connected to their emotions. Is that true?
I think so. I think that you know, you asked, you know, why is it that I do what I do? I don't. I mean, I choose it every day, but in a certain sense, I don't feel like I choose it. I feel like it's kind of a, I don't want to say a calling, but it is. It's because I'm just referring to myself in this in terms of being closer to my emotions. I've always been a sensitive person who writes, you know, about things, and yeah, I think that artists for the most part are more sensitive. And I don't mean to say that, like, you know, the people who aren't artists are not sensitive, but I think that artists have this need to express that somehow for their own well-being, you know?
Yeah.
Creative form.
Mm-hmm. Good. I've heard audiovisuals kill our ability to create, limiting us to what we are fed. Do you think that could be true?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. That audiovisuals
kill our ability to create, limiting us to what we are fed. Do you think that could be true?
As in, if we are seeing audiovisuals, as if when we're having to have a visual image for what we create. Is that what that means?
Audiovisuals. I don't know.
Well, if what is meant by the question is that there has to be an image associated with everything we create, it kills our creativity.
Or that we are being fed with audiovisuals all over the place. That's what I understand. We understand is that we are fed of audiovisuals all the time. We receive a lot of how to say that? We're continuously receiving messages, you know, on audio, you know, for audio messages or visual messages all the time, you know, all over the place, wherever we go. And that, I guess that's the thing what that person is saying when she says limiting us to what we are fed. Do you think that could be true, that kills our ability to create?
I think it's overkill. I don't think our brains are meant to process that much information. Mm-hmm. I personally do not understand people who walk around with ear pods in all the time. I personally don't want to hear music 24/7 or sound, let alone music. I also that goes hand in hand with something I do when I write an album. After going through the sorting process, which is like what I did last time, of sounds and listening to a bunch of stuff to kind of decide on my own direction, I actually go really quiet. I don't listen to a lot of music. I don't listen to, because I want it. So that links to the question, I think, is to be creative and to know what's going to come out of me. I have to kind of put a silencer on all that information. So yes, I think that making silence in yourself is a good idea for getting creative. And and if you're constantly in receiving mode, I can't get there personally. So
good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can sing really nice when I am by myself, but I get really shy and can't do it when there's people around me. Can you give me an advice to free myself?
Yes. Oh gosh, this could, I don't want it to be a long answer, but I think it's natural. I think I would say take classes. I mean, that sounds like a basic thing, but find somebody who builds your confidence. Get clearer and clearer, because if you enjoy singing, you enjoy singing. And I think it's part of a natural course when you sing for people to be a little nervous about that. You're human, right? But the clearer you get on the importance for you to sing and why it is that you do it, and get support in building confidence in your voice, which is your own. Nobody has your voice. Just get confident in why it is you do this, and confidence is gained by doing it more often.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah.
Do you play an instrument also? If so, which one?
I do. So I played classical piano for 10 years. So I played keyboards. I play guitar. When I tour solo, I accompany myself on guitar. I basically, I had played classical guitar when I was a kid, and a few years ago, I realized that when each show cost me so much money that I needed to be able to go perform solo. So I took some classes, and I learned how to accompany myself on each of my songs in a way that I found was interesting. And so, yes, I play piano, I play guitar. I used to play bass in a reggae band. That was years ago. I dabble at accordion. I'm not a great accordion player, but so I mostly play guitar and keyboards, and that's about it.
Excellent. Next question is, where do you tour?
So I have toured different places. I've toured France a couple times years ago, actually in the hometown that I'm right next to right now. I played at the '92 Winter Olympics in Albertville. I don't know if that rings a bell for the people listening right now, but otherwise, the last extensive tour that I did was up and down the west coast of California. I always wanted to get in my car and tour. So I did. I booked a tour, and I went from California, Northern California, meaning like San Francisco, all the way to Seattle, through Ashland and Portland and Tacoma and Nevada City, and back down to Los Angeles, where I did a few shows. So mostly the West Coast. And I've done some little jaunts. I played for a couple nonprofits. One was called, it was a company that makes shoes for kids. And I played in Washington, D.C. a few times for benefits for them. And the next tour, I'm not sure. It's actually kind of in the planning, or it's bubbling in my, I'd like to do a festival tour.
Okay, next question. How do you book the venues? Is it hard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It's, it's never easy. It's that tour that I just described that I did. I did this thing that one of my music business teachers had taught me is reverse engineer your dream. That was a new concept for me at the time. So I said, okay, 2 years from now, I want to tour. What does that mean? I have to do this month, this month, this month, down to this day. And so that's how I booked this tour. Was initially once a week, and I wasn't the only one doing it, but myself once a week on Wednesdays, I would spend 3 hours trying to find a way to book this tour. And I literally got to a month from the tour, and I tried I called venues. I mapped a route. I had a map on my in my office that had dates for each city. And I had no book tour at that point. And then one day I got on this, so I just kept trying things. I tried through Facebook and my friends to try and book a house concert tour. And some people were receptive. Some people thought that was the craziest idea. One day I spoke to this guy who was the director of a music conference. And he said to me, he goes, "Oh, why don't you come to the music conference in Los Angeles in October?" And I said, "I can't. I'm in Seattle in October." I didn't have a show. It just said on my map that I was in Seattle. And he said to me, he goes, "Well, you might want to reverse your tour. You might not want to be in Seattle in October. It rains a lot." So when I hung up, I inverted the tour. I said, "Yeah, he's right." And then finally, I'd been talking about this tour forever, and literally a month before I had said I was going to go on tour, I thought I might just have to hide at home and send people postcards pretending I'm in Seattle, Ashland, and whatever. And then this booking agent who had tried to meet with me a couple times and it hadn't happened, she reached out to me on LinkedIn, and she said, "I'd like to connect with you here." And I said, "Great. I'm okay with that, but I need you to help me. This is what I have. I have this route." And she said, "Okay." And so first she asked me, she said, "Well, do you want to play in Ukiah next week?" And I said, "Well, I better say yes." So I said, "Yes, I'll play in Ukiah." I drove 4 hours there, 4 hours back. Then the next week she said, "Do you want to play in Eureka?" And now that's like quite a bit further. It's 400 miles. I said, "Yes, but only if it takes me on the route I've been telling you about." And at the end of that week, she called me. She goes, "You're going on tour Monday." And this was after two years of how am I going to go on this tour that I want to do? And so that night, my husband came home and I said, you know, that tour I've been telling you about, like I go, I'm leaving Monday. He goes, you're not. I said, yes, I am. I'm going on this tour. And it was called the Happiness Project. And I went on this tour for almost 3 weeks and I did 16 shows. And afterwards I called it my Recognizance Tour. But when I embarked on it, it was called the Happiness Tour.
Wow.
Yeah, is it easy? No, it's not easy. It's tough to find venues that pay artists these days, and so it's a combination. I think it has to be a combination of, you know, house concerts, places where you've played before, places that friends recommend. There's the only thing I know to do is to show up about it consistently, and you don't necessarily know how it's going to manifest, but if you show up, something will happen.
Excellent. And this is the last, excuse me, the last question. What is the importance of proper advertising? How do people get to know you are playing in their town?
That's a great question. It's kind of multifold. So one of the things we do is I have a mailing list that I constantly build. And so there's some people in that mailing list that possibly are in the towns where I'm going. There's social media, of course, but creating an event on Facebook doesn't guarantee that people are going to show up. There's reaching out in each city. There are different, and because I'm not always the one handling all of that, I mean, in each city you can get on some, you know, there's a thing, well, in the United States called Next Door, and if you can get in Next Door, you can announce your event. Any public posting that, you know, announces your event. Also, one of the things we did last time when I played in Los Angeles a few times is we connect with people that we call my sound alikes. I mean, people whose audience maybe would enjoy me as well. And then ahead of time, we go connect with people in the towns where I'm going to go to build an awareness of me, whether it's through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, my mailing list, you know, reaching out. So we try to connect with local people or the people who attend the venues where I'm going to play. We find out who attended those shows, reach out to them, and try to make them aware of me ahead of time because we know they already go to the venue.
Excellent.
Like I said, it's a multifold answer.
Absolutely. No, it is very interesting. So we've reached the end of our conversation today, Clara. Again, I would like you to remind Mindalia TV's audience, where can they find you, please?
Yes, so you can find me at clarabellino.com, CLARA, as in boy, ELLINO.com. And we are going to give you, Angel, a link. We are about to release the album initially to friends and my list. And so we're going to give you a link that you'll be able to place under this video, wherever you put it. And that is the place to go if you would like to get the album. It'll be specifically for you, for the listeners of your show, because we want to participate in what you're doing too, and that'll be the best place to go to get the album.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I mean, we've really enjoyed this conversation. We've learned so much. We've been so inspired, Clara. Really.
Oh, thank you so much. The time flew by. I gotta tell you, I mean, you know, I'm up at 3 a.m. in France, but I don't even the 3 a.m. hasn't mattered one bit. It's been such a joy being here. I'm really grateful for being invited here. And any other questions I can answer for anyone later, I'm happy to. Please reach out. If I can help in any way, I'm here. And what a joy to be here with you. It's so fun that we're different parts of the world and we
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, thank you very much. And again, this is Angel Ribo with Mindalia TV. Thank you very much for being here with us tonight, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Myrna, too. Bye.